Hi there, it's Mike here at Greenway. I've been driving electric cars since 2013, and a lot of the questions I get are related to the distance an electric car can drive on one charge. So if you take a look at a website like fueleconomy.gov and you look up the car you're considering, it'll give you the estimated range in miles. And that estimated range will give you the range estimate for ideal conditions. And what I mean by ideal conditions is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, not very much wind, no rain, and driving at about 40 to 50 miles per hour. So some city driving, mix of city and some light highway driving. Now, that's in ideal conditions, as I said. So you want to know what the real world range is. And there's a few different factors that will modify the range that you'll get on your vehicle. The first factor is speed. The faster you go, the slower the range will be on your vehicle. And that's a little bit counterintuitive. You might remember with gas vehicles, typically the fuel economy is better on the highway because you're not stopping and starting. But the reverse is true for electric vehicles, because when you slow down an electric vehicle, it has something called regenerative braking, which means as you slow down, it's recharging the battery using the motor to recharge the battery. Then when you accelerate again, it will use some of that power. And so the electric vehicles perform a lot better in the city at slower speeds for this reason. Another reason why they perform better in the city is because on the highway, because you're going so much faster, you're just pushing a lot more air out of the way. And if you think of riding a bicycle, the faster you go, the more wind resistance you have. Same thing for the electric vehicle. So electric vehicles tend to have longer range if you go slower. So if you think of your commute, do you drive mostly on the highway? Do you drive mostly in the city? If you drive mostly in the city, you can probably believe the range estimate on the fueleconomy.gov website in ideal conditions. If you drive mostly highway, then this will likely mean your range is going to be reduced. It could be 10 to 20%, depending on the speed you're going. If you're going 75 miles per hour versus 65 miles per hour, that's going to make a fairly good difference in your range of the vehicle. So that's something to consider when purchasing an electric vehicle. The second thing that's going to make a big impact on the range of your vehicle is the outdoor temperature. So electric vehicles are a little bit like us. We prefer a nice, pleasant 70 degrees and not too much wind, and a nice sunny day without some rain. But the colder it gets, the less range you'll get out of your electric vehicle. And that's for two reasons. First, your battery, when it gets colder, is not as efficient. And so it's not going to be able to hold quite as much charge. And so you won't really notice a huge difference when it's above freezing, above 32 Fahrenheit. But once you get below 32, then you're going to notice a reduction in range. The second factor regarding temperature is the climate control, or the heating that you're using inside the cabin of your vehicle. So with a gas vehicle, when you turn the heat on, it really makes no difference in your fuel economy, because you're using heat that's already waste heat from the engine. The engine's already hot, so you're just pulling heat off of an already hot engine. With an electric vehicle, the motor's so efficient it really creates very little heat. And so therefore, in order to create heat for the passengers, you have to use a special or separate heater to heat up the cabin. And therefore, it's pulling more power to heat up passengers in the vehicle for this reason. So you're hit with two things at temperature when it's gone down. One, the battery is slightly less efficient, but two, and more importantly, you're using more power for heating. Now, let's go in the reverse direction and say that you are in a very hot climate. It's 85, 90, 100, 110 degrees outside. What impact does that have on your range? It will reduce your range slightly as well, but not as significantly as cold weather. So let's say, it's 95 degrees outside. You'll have the air conditioning turned on. It does use some power, but it's not as power hungry as heat. So if you compare a 95-degree day to a 32-degree day, you're going to be using a bit more power when it's 32 degrees compared to 95. If you're in extreme climates where it gets exceptionally cold, say down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 18 Celsius, or even lower, minus 25, minus 30, you're going to probably be decreasing your range on your vehicle anywhere between 25 to 40%. But if you're in moderate climates where it gets down to freezing occasionally, it might have a 10 to 15% impact on the range of your car. The next thing that affects the range of your vehicle is your personal driving habits. So if you think of a gas car, you know how you've been told to drive without slamming on the brake or slamming on the gas pedal, without accelerating too rapidly. Same thing applies for an electric vehicle. If you accelerate rapidly like a race car driver, you're going to be burning up a lot more electrons than you would just like if you were running on a gas car. So if you drive a little bit more conservatively, a little bit slower, and don't do any of those quick starts, then you're going to do a lot better with your fuel or range. The next item that's going to affect your range is the age of your car. So if you're buying a brand new vehicle, brand new electric vehicle, you can read those fueleconomy.gov estimates and then adjust it based on some of those factors I mentioned before. If you have an older vehicle, 5 years, 10 years old, as the battery ages, it does lose a little bit of its range. And bigger batteries tend to lose range slower. And the reason for that is if you've got a car with 100,000 miles on it, and you have a really large battery, like in a Tesla, an older Tesla, it will have had a lot less cycling of the battery, which means you've recharged it fewer times in order to go that distance. Whereas if you have a smaller battery, for example, a 10-year-old Nissan Leaf, the battery is quite a bit smaller, and so in order to achieve 100,000 miles, you've had to recharge the battery many more times, and so it's gone through many more cycles. So the battery is potentially decreasing in its overall capacity. So how much capacity do you lose after 10 years? Well, there's a few electric vehicles that have been out now for as many as 10 years. A Tesla Model S, you can take a look online and see what some users are getting for their range degradation, but somewhere around 10% is a good estimate on a Tesla. And if you think that's on a battery vehicle with a large battery, if you have a vehicle with a small battery, such as the Nissan Leaf, that's 10 years old and also has done the same number of miles, which means it's done more cycles of the battery, it's closer probably to 20 to 25% range reduction. Then on top of it, there's yet another factor that affects the overall longevity of the battery, and that is the general climate that the car is in. So for example, if you're in a hot climate like in Phoenix, Arizona, or any southern states, Florida, batteries tend to degrade a little bit faster when they're in hot climates. And so if you are picking up a vehicle from the southern part of the country, then you may find that the battery has degraded slightly more than if you pick up a vehicle from a northern part of the country. So just to clarify, in the winter, your range does go down because it's cold, but once it warms up, your range will increase again. And it doesn't cause any long-term ill effects on the battery. But if you're in a hot climate all the time, in the long term, it can cause your battery to degrade a little bit faster. Another factor that affects your range of your vehicle on each charge is how you've got your climate control set. And so if you prefer to turn the climate control into 90 Fahrenheit in the winter and blast the air as hot as possible, that's definitely going to reduce your range a lot more than if you set it to 65 or 70 more of a moderate temperature. Same thing in summer, although has less of an impact. If you set in a hot day, if you set your climate control to 75 or 80, have your air conditioning set to that number, instead of 60, it's going to run the air conditioning a lot less as well. Another trick you could use to increase the range of your vehicle is to turn off the climate control. If you have a sort of a mild day where it's not too hot, not too cold, but you need a little bit of heat, many cars have heated seats and heated steering wheels. Those features use very little power. In some of the electric vehicles, you may be using as much as 6,000 watts of power to run your heat, whereas in a heated seat, it might only use 100 watts, and a heated steering wheel maybe only 75 watts compared to 6,000 watts. So in summary, if you want to try to preserve your range, turn your heat off or turn it down, and turn on your heated seats and turn on your heated steering wheel. So I hope this information has been useful for you. And if you've got any comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section. I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please press like and consider subscribing for more videos. Thanks, and have a good day.